You're listening to the Fan Club Podcast, where two polar opposites discover each other's fandoms for the very first time.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Fan Club Podcast. My name is Sarah.
This is Matthew.
And welcome back to episode 24. So, yeah, we are covering Spider-Man No Way Home. And I actually think I might like this movie better than Far From Home, but in different ways.
Okay.
Like, I like both.
Yes.
I think...
I completely understand that.
But No Way Home just has that, like, emotional pull, I think, that Far From Home doesn't have.
Yeah, because Far From Home, I mean, don't get me wrong, Far From Home had a lot of emotional impact.
It also...
Where we saw Peter at his lowest.
Like, it also, because in Homecoming, we were in our Homecoming episode, my best friend Katie was on, and she was saying, like, there's a lot of callbacks in the future. And I get what she was meaning now. Mm-hmm. Because I've only ever seen, I think maybe, quite possibly, the first and maybe the second Tobey Maguire.
Okay.
I know who Doc Ock is, but I don't really recall anything else from that movie whatsoever.
Okay.
Because that movie came out when I was, like, 10.
Yeah.
So it was directed by John Watts again. So basically it opens with the same scene that No Way Home. Yes. Or that Far From Home. I keep getting the two mixed up. They're too similar of names.
Yeah.
Basically, it picks up where the last one ended. Mysterio basically pins his death on Peter and then reveals his identity. We also learned that Happy and May break up.
Yeah.
And Peter is being investigated by the FBI.
Yeah, so Peter is freaking out that everyone knows. This is the first time May has met MJ.
Yeah.
Because this is literally, that scene at the end of Far From Home, I don't remember if we said it or not, is a week after their trip.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's been no time. And he's freaking out. Their hotel is on TV. Then we get Matt Murdock.
Daredevil. Which, Matthew debated having me watch Daredevil, but I'm like, I really don't think
Just so that you know who the character is.
I know vaguely who Daredevil is. I have no idea, like, what he does or what his character's like. But I don't think I needed to watch a whole thing.
So, the reason why Daredevil was in this was...
He's Peter's lawyer.
Yes. In the comics, something similar happened to Spider-Man, where Spider-Man was on trial.
Daredevil, you mean?
No, Spider-Man was on trial.
Okay.
And Daredevil, or Matt Murdock, was Spider-Man's lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
So they sort of brought that into the movie along with making the Defenders.
Mm-hmm.
They were the Netflix Marvel shows,
okay,
part of the MCU. So it was sort of to do both. Was to tie in Daredevil to the MCU because Daredevil's getting his own, like, 20-episode TV show.
I am very relieved.
In a couple years.
I'm very relieved we don't have to cover the Defender series because, like, when they first came out, they, like, obviously I hadn't done, like, the whole...
They're really good.
I just have been fully uninterested.
Daredevil's is really good.
Like, specifically, just, like, the Netflix shows, I haven't been interested in.
I think you would like them. After watching all the TV shows, I may have you watch them.
Not to cover,
just so that...
Just for fun.
Just so that you know a little bit more about the Defenders, because I have a feeling they will be talked about a lot in the Daredevil Born Again TV show.
So, as we are recording this, yesterday was D23.
Yes.
Or, like, this past weekend, rather, was D23. And a ton of stuff was just announced.
Yes.
So, who knows, really?
I mean, it's already been announced that Daredevil's getting, like, a 20-episode TV show. Like, a full season TV show.
Yeah.
But that's not going to be for several years.
I'm just... Like, just in the last day alone, there's been so much It's not.
We've gone trailers, we've gone characters, we've gone directors.
In Marvel alone, not even tapping into the Disney stuff that we've gotten.
This was just Marvel.
And, like, I don't fully understand a lot of it, like, what any of it really means. Wasn't there something, it did not click in my brain until just a second. I think there's something to do with the elementals. Is it, like...
The elementals are...
Is it the elementals, like the fire, water...
Not the same elementals as what we saw in...
Far From Home.
Yeah. Those elementals, which I know we usually don't talk about future stuff.
I'm just saying...
But...
I try really hard not to date these episodes just because we do film so far in advance.
Yeah.
But it's kind of hard not to when it's, like, we're talking about certain things, and there was just, like, whatever my point was, there's things that I don't fully understand. Like, I know that, like, Bucky is going to be a part of, like, I know people are really excited about that. I know there were a couple of other things that were announced, but, like, I don't really have context for it because I try really hard with these announcements to not read too far into them. Okay, anyway, we're completely off topic, but, so May and Peter, basically, they are forced to move out of their apartment.
Yeah. And they move into Happy's condo.
Yep.
2-story condo, which probably cost a pretty penny in New
No
York.
kidding. Like, a shoebox of, like, a studio apartment in Manhattan is, like...
Also, he has Tony money.
Peter and MJ are adorable, as always.
So they're video chatting while Happy is on his CPAP machine, fully awake, listening to their conversation, and he tells them to stop talking and go to bed.
Can I just say, I cannot stand Flash.
No one can.
He is so annoying.
No one likes him.
Is he across the board annoying, or is it just that actor?
It's the character.
Because he annoys me, like, so much.
There's been several different Flashes. Like, we've seen Flash before in Tobey Maguire's.
Well, yeah, he's the guy that, like, does the...
He's Sofia Vergara's husband.
I didn't make that connection, but, like, the scene where he catches all the things on the...
Yes.
On the tray.
But in the comics, Flash is sometimes an ally to Peter. Because in the comics, so...
No, I just think he's annoying, and, like, they always use him as, in these movies, as comic relief, and I just never find him funny.
So, this movie takes place over, like, several months. It's like, 6 months is this movie?
Mm-hmm.
Because we see it start off in summer, or at the end of summer, and we end the movie in winter?
It's like Christmas time.
Yeah, so winter.
Because I could have sworn that the beginning scene where he goes to see MJ at her work, which is a donut shop, there's still Halloween decorations up, and the boss, like, makes some comment about, like, it's not Halloween anymore.
So that's the thing.
It's, like, past Halloween.
So the entire first part of the movie is them getting the letters from colleges.
Yeah, so
where
we figure out that they didn't get into MIT.
They didn't get into any college.
Because of their association with Spider-Man.
Yep, so...
And we learned that Flash got into MIT.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Because Flash makes some comment like, hey, you guys come into the mixture? And they're like, no. And it's like, why not? It's like, because we're actually friends with Spider-Man. You're not.
I don't know.
And then Flash is like, oh, okay, well, bye.
Do you have the, like, memories of, like, the not getting into college thing? Because I didn't go to college, so
I didn't apply.
Yeah, I didn't do it.
I did community college.
I think I applied to, like, because at one point I was going to go to culinary school. And I applied to, like, a culinary school, and I don't think I got in. So they go to Doctor Strange.
So Peter goes to see Doctor Strange and tries to see if they can do a spell to reverse time to make people forget that Peter is Spider-Man. And then Doctor Strange says, yeah, okay, so everyone. He's like, what about Aunt May? In the middle of the spell. So Doctor Strange says, okay, sure, whatever. Changes it so that Aunt May remembers. And he's like, oh yeah, Happy and MJ and Ned and all of his friends. And he changes the spell 6 times. And we get the whole plot of the movie because Peter did not talk to MIT to
So-
fight his case.
He goes to find the admissions lady for MIT.
He calls Flash, and he's like, I will take a picture with you, or whatever.
And on the highway, who shows up? Dr. Otto Octavius.
Yes.
What a name. First of all, who names their kid Otto?
So, Marvel for a while, a lot of their characters, for some reason, it's mainly Spider-Man villains, have the same letter for the first and last
It's
name.
called alliteration.
For some reason, there's a lot of people.
Otto is like one of those names, like Obadiah, that I just don't.
It's like Old English.
Well, I mean, like,
Octavius, please come down for dinner.
like my brother's name is Jeremiah. Okay, like I'm familiar with like old. I'm familiar with like maybe less common, like maybe Hebrew names.
Yeah.
Or like I'm. It's just like it's not an Otto is not a name that
But
like
when you hear, like,
I've never met a kid named Otto.
like if you name your kid Octavius, like Otto, like.
What do you call him? Audie?
But a cool thing is, so I actually learned this from the Spider-Man game. It's called Oscorp because it was founded by Norman Osborn and Doc Ock, and both their last names start with Ock.
Mm-hmm.
So it's Oscorps, the OS Corp.
Mm-hmm.
Because in college apparently they were friends. I don't know how true this is to the comics. I'm just solely just basing this off of the Spider-Man video game that's been out for several years now, where they made Oscorp together, which is why it's called Oscorp.
So basically, there's a shot where Doc Ock
Is fighting Peter on the
And then
bridge, and then
he
realizes
steals
like,
the nanotech.
yeah, or he's like, "You're not my Peter." He's like, "I'm the only Peter here. Who are you?" Okay, so when we're talking about the different Spider-Men,
We're just gonna say Tom, Toby, and
Andrew.
Andrew.
Yes. Or should we
Yeah.
just do Spider-Man 1, 2, and 3 like
No,
they
that's
did?
really very confusing. I would just rather call them
we'll say
Tom, Toby, Andrew.
yes. So that will be the easiest way to decipher everyone.
Especially in the scenes where they're all together.
Which we're not going to do the same thing that we did with Endgame and Infinity War.
No, absolutely
Because there's not enough to do
It's
that.
not really a timeline thing. It's more of like it's just easier to because if we call them all Peter, it's already confusing enough to say like Peter Quill and Peter Parker.
Yeah.
Like, who shows up but the Green Goblin himself?
Or we're not sure yet. All we see is a bomb. We don't know if that's
I
Green
think we
Goblin.
hear it. We think we hear him laughing.
But also, Peter, or Harry Osborn, had the same laugh. He was the Hobgoblin at the end of Spider-Man 3.
Mm-hmm.
So, we don't know right now. I mean, technically we do.
So
It could be either
Peter
one.
then goes looking for. He goes looking for him and finds Electro.
They get Doc Ock into the prison type thing, and Doctor Strange gets the lizard into the prison thing. He gets a reading chart out in the middle of nowhere of a massive energy surge. And so he goes to see it. His suit is inside out right now because it got green.
Yeah.
He got green paint thrown at him.
I find that really fun.
So his suit's just inside out.
Mm-hmm.
And he fights Electro, kind of, with the help of Sandman. So we get
Flint Marko.
Marco. We get Flint Marco and Electro, which,
I imagine as a comic book nerd, this was really cool.
yes, because that's the thing. Sandman is part. I'm not blaming him for Uncle Ben's death, but he was there.
Yeah.
He was there at Uncle Ben's death.
I have a note that says this movie is genuinely really funny in a super weird meta way.
Because Electro is taking power. It feels different to him because with the multiverse, each Earth vibrates slightly differently.
Mm-hmm.
So that means everything will be different, even if it's one molecule different.
Yeah. I think that this movie is funny in the same way that, like, Scream is funny.
but it's also explains the multiverse stuff very, very well.
No, I'm just saying, like, it's the comedy is that same kind of comedy where
it's not trying to be funny, it just is.
Well, cause like, okay, like I'm a big fan of the Scream franchise. I can't say I've always loved the Scream franchise, but like in my adult life,
I love 5.
In my adult life, I've loved the Scream franchise.
I love 1 and 5.
Yeah.
I mean,
2 and 3 can
3
not exist, and I wouldn't care.
2's okay. 3 completely retconned everything.
I enjoy 4, except the cinematography. I think it looks like somebody smeared Vaseline on the lens. I think it's a really ugly movie.
But Scream. Why don't we do Scream?
I would love to do Scream. I would love to do Scream.
If you want us to do, like, if you want us to do a horror, like, not a scary horror, like
I'm not a horror movie buff in the traditional sense. Like, I don't love Halloween or, like, you know, the Freddy Kruegers or...
We could cover Cabin in the Woods.
But I do love slashers, well, I guess Halloween and Freddy Kruegers
If we do Scream, we are not doing the TV show.
No.
It's
just too complicated.
I'm not going...
And also, it's not good.
The TV show is literally the plots of 1, 2, and 3.
It's just... Yeah. But I love the Screams. Basically, getting back to my point, was... Scream is... It's entirely meta-commentary. Especially... they're all meta-commentary, but especially the first one because of the fact that Scream reinvigorated the slasher genre. And it is so referential in the sense... But it's referential without being patronizing, because, like...
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of movies that try to do meta-commentary are very, like, patronizing of the fans that like that thing.
I mean, even, like, Scream 4 got very meta, but...
Well, and Scream 5, spoiler alert for Scream 5, I'm not gonna, like, reveal anything, but, like, if you haven't gotten around to seeing it, maybe...
It's been out for a year now.
But my point is, Scream 5 is much more, because it's much more about elevated horror, which is, like, Babadook, and the more, like, and Hereditary, and...
Babadook, The Boy...
Midsommar, and, like, that kind of genre of, like, the more psychological thrillers.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of, there's a lot of conversation in that movie about what constitutes good horror versus bad horror. Mm-hmm. And so it's much more of, like, a more updated version of what they did in Scream 1.
And 4, because 4 got
and 4 was, like, in the heyday of live streaming. I mean, we're still in a heyday of live streaming. But it was when it was when it became a thing.
4 sort of not retconned 1, but brought 1 back to its core.
Yeah, because 3 went off the freaking rails.
2 is okay. 2 is
okay, 3 is bad.
Yes.
Anyway, my point in that, I think, is that this movie, in a way, is the same brand of comedy that, like, okay, if you know Scream, you know this scene where, in the first Scream movie, where Randy is in the video store and he's like, everybody's a suspect. And it's like, the scene is really funny, but it's also, like, meta.
Yeah. Because
they're talking about, you know, like, tropes and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that Spider-Man does a really good job of that without being super patronizing to the people who enjoy these movies for not that enjoy these movies from the comic book perspective.
We see Sandman helping Peter fight Electro.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. So Electro is quote unquote naked right now, which is a funny scene.
What does he end up wearing? It's like a fireman's outfit?
No, it's an electrical outfit. Because they're, like, next to an electrical warehouse.
Yeah.
And so Peter sends both people, and then Ned is asking, because Peter also sent a tree by mistake. And Ned is asking, is the tree a villain? And Peter says, no. Is the tree, like, evil? No, it's just a normal... And then Electro says, it's just a normal tree, bro. There's nothing special about it.
This is what I mean by, like, the meta.
Like, they're not... It's not... Like, it's funny, without it needing
It's not like,
to
because
say a joke.
Because it's the same way that, like, in small doses, Tony Stark is really, really funny, but sometimes his sarcasm gets a little old. Sorry.
It's like Captain America.
No shade to anybody who's a Iron Man stan. Not that I'm not. I find that brand of sarcasm to get a little grating sometimes.
It's like Captain America. Like, there's stuff that kind of like in Age of Ultron at the beginning. So, do you remember when Cap just says language?
Yeah.
And like that was funny without him trying to
but like
be funny.
we don't need to be like get kneed in the ribs every single time that they make a joke about Cap being old.
No.
Like, because they kind of get to that point where like haha, remember he's like 90. Like, yeah. Sorry, you guys can't see me. I don't know why I'm like gesturing.
I don't know. I like the jokes in the MCU where they don't try, like,
and they're not
characters that normally aren't funny. Like Cap, you don't think, oh, he's a funny person, and it's like there's little lines here or there.
I also like some of the jokes that aren't necessarily, you don't necessarily need a vast knowledge. Like, any old person that could stumble across these movies could get the joke.
Like, I know we've talked about this joke a lot. Or not a lot, but, like, in the first Avengers, when they're talking about, like, flying monkeys and stuff like that. Like, where Cap says, oh, I know what that is.
Yeah.
Like, stuff like that. Like, that wasn't meant to be funny, but it was.
But at some point, the jokes about Cap being old got old. So Norman goes to May's work looking for help.
Mm-hmm. Because, so during this time, Norman is trying to get rid of Green Goblin.
Yeah.
So.
And May works at a homeless shelter.
It's called Feast. It's. What does it stand for? I used to know it off the top of my head. It's an acronym. The MCU loves its acronyms.
Yeah, at one point I thought it was really funny, and then it just kind of started getting annoying a little bit. Just one of those things that is just a constant, and like not every acronym needs to be funny or...
It's Food, Emergency, Aid, Shelter, and Training. Which, this is kind of like what I was talking about in in Far From Home. Feast was more introduced in the Spiderman game.
Mm-hmm.
Which May helped run.
Yeah.
Or in it, she pretty much ran it herself at the end. I do like how they tied in stuff from the Spider-Man game into the MCU, which I really do like. Because before, the Spider-Man game was just on an island by itself. It was a part of the comics, but it wasn't part of the MCU yet.
So, Peter then steals the spell.
Mm-hmm.
Which is like this little box.
He had to put the spell in the protection box because the spell got so unstable.
Mm-hmm.
Because Peter changed it, like I was saying earlier, 6 times. You can't modify a spell 6 times while it was being made. Beforehand, sure, you can do it 100 times, 1,000,000 times, whatever. But it was literally in the middle of the spell, which was bad.
We revisit the mirror dimension.
Peter used science and math to outsmart a wizard.
I literally wrote down, he outmaths his magic.
Like, because it was all geometry. It was all equal on all sides. So he literally trapped him and stole the sling ring from him.
Mm-hmm.
And then he gives it to Ned.
So we go back to the apartment and they use Tony's fabricator machine
to try to
replace Doc Ock's chip.
To cure the villains.
Yeah, so basically the whole plan
So we learn that the villains die. So the villains were taken before their death. Norman has been dead for years before Doc Ock turned evil. And Flint Marko said, you also died. Electro said, Lizard died. So they were all plucked from their universe right before their death. So Peter is thinking, hey, maybe if I help them, if I cure them, they can live in their universe. And then Doctor Strange says, no, it's not the natural order. I mean, honestly, the natural order would have been you don't help a teenager try to get into college. But whatever. So we can sort of blame Doctor Strange for this, right? For going along with Peter's stupid plan? I don't know. I mean, Peter is solely responsible for this. He fixes the chip on the back of Doc Ock. The reason why Doc Ock went crazy was because of all the voices from the chip.
Yeah.
It added voices to his brain. And Peter fixed that because the chip got fried. Where it wasn't him controlling the arms, it was the arms controlling him. Begs the question, is he more man or is he more machine?
And then Green Goblin turns.
So Peter is working on another
all the
thing.
while they think, well, Norman is like being normal, like Norman.
Acting normal.
Yeah, and
then
all of a sudden he turns.
So, like, Electro has the electric thing on him, draining the extra electricity from inside him. That's almost done. And
there is a funny line that is it Happy? I think it's Happy. That it's like, why? It has to be because he's like, why is that guy getting mud on my couch?
Or sand.
I think he says mud.
Maybe, I don't know.
I don't know. I just thought the line was funny.
But
May tries to inject him with the serum.
So Peter, his tingle goes off, and he's just walking. Looks like he's dazed. Because it's like a zoom in on Peter's face, and he's like, just has a blank look. So, you know, like, when you first wake up, or when someone first wakes up and you try to ask them a question, and they're like, zoned out?
Yeah.
That was kind of Peter. Because he felt the tingle, but he didn't know from where. And then Doc Ock returned, in the creepiest fashion. And
he basically escapes and blows everything up.
He kills May.
Yeah.
And then we get the line.
She basically says, her last words are, with great power comes great responsibility.
Which has always been Uncle Ben.
I was wondering when they were going to bring that line in.
Everyone was. Oh, when I say people were waiting for May to die, I legitimately mean people were just waiting. That's the thing. With Spider-Man, that's his catalyst, is Ben dying. Like, he's been a hero for years. Just like in the comics, he was a hero for years before Ben died. But that was the, not breaking point, but the point of, I need to be better. Because I let someone that I love die. It's the, oh, I'm not playing around anymore. These villains aren't playing. These villains are out to get me, type thing. Does that make sense? But we got the line, and when I say the audience was silent,
so Happy gets arrested, and I have so much disdain for J. Jonah Jameson in this scene.
Everyone does.
He is just like being just so cold.
Yeah.
And like, I get that the public does not think too favorably of Peter right now.
Because of
Mysterio.
Because of Triple J.
But this kid's aunt just got murdered. Have some freaking sympathy, my dude.
Yeah. But that's the thing. So, J. Jonah Jameson has actually been in every single Spider-Man movie.
J.K. Simmons.
J.K. Simmons has been in every single Spider-Man movie.
So, speaking of all three, we go to Ned's house with his grandma, Lola.
Yes. I love Lola.
And
she is just a gem.
She's so sweet, and she's speaking, I think it's called Taglong, which is the...
I thought it was Tatooinese. I don't know.
Tatooine is the
Not
planet...
Tatooine!
Tatooine is the planet in Star Wars!
Not Tatooine!
I think it's Taglong, because it's the Philippines. The language in the Philippines.
Okay.
It's called Taglong. So she doesn't speak any English in this entire scene.
No, she speaks some.
And they use the sling ring
to find Peter. But we get Andrew Garfield's Peter, which is my second favorite Peter.
And we get
Tobey
Maguire.
Yeah, but
I can just imagine the cheering.
Yes.
And nobody knew that was happening.
It got spoiled.
Yeah.
But in all of the trailers, they were edited out.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
it's not that hard, I don't think.
No, but, like, people have gone back over the trailers, and they can see them being edited out. Because, like, the villains are looking somewhere else than...
Yeah.
But we get a funny scene between MJ and Andrew Garfield, Spider-Man,
Mm-hmm.
where she just keeps throwing bread at him. It's like, Spidey sense. Spidey sense. And he's like, no. And so he jumps on the roof.
I don't have much familiarity with Andrew Garfield, with an exception of Spider-Man, and he was more recently in a Hulu show called Under the Banner of Heaven.
Wasn't he in West Side Story? No.
No.
No, he was in the movie about Rent. Didn't he play the dude who made Rent?
Oh! Tick Tick Boom.
Yes.
He was in Tick Tick Boom.
Yes.
No, it's about the guy who wrote Rent.
That's what I said! About the guy who made Rent. That's what I said!
I thought you meant like he was in the musical.
No, I said...
I was like,
the
no,
musical...
the movie's from like 2004.
I said about the guy who made Rent, is what I said.
I was not computing what you were saying. I thought you meant like made Rent as in like paid it.
Oh my god. You have to give me credit for knowing that.
Jonathan Larson is his name. He played Jonathan Larson.
Don't know who that is.
He wrote Rent.
Okay. I can sort of gather that knowledge.
I thought he did a really... I completely forgot that movie existed for a hot second.
Was it Disney? Or was it like...
No, it was Netflix.
Netflix.
No, but he...
That was close.
I most recently watched him in Under the Banner of Heaven, which, if you like true crime and you like Mormonism, it's a really dark show, but it's really interesting.
Yeah.
It's on Hulu, and I think that Andrew Garfield does a really good job emotionally connecting in that movie. Or in that show, I mean.
Mm-hmm. Andrew Garfield's on the roof, or on the ceiling, and Lola says, like, hey, can you get that cobweb while you're up there? And he's like, sure. And he gets the cobweb.
They basically are like, where is, Tom? Like,
or they say, where is Peter? And they do the magic again, and then Tobey Maguire steps out, and they start shooting webs at each other because they think they're both a villain. And then Lola gets mad and tells them to clean up the webs. Clean up the house. And they're like, yes, ma'am. And they just clean.
Yeah. And they find Tom on the school's roof.
Because they all have their place. Like, Tobey Maguire's place that he would go to think was the Chrysler Building. Andrew Garfield's was Empire State University. ESU, it's in the MCU. Or it's in the comics. It's supposed to be like New York State.
NYU, you mean?
It's supposed to be NYU, but it's ESU.
Mm-hmm.
It's I think it's Empire State University.
So they go down to the school's science lab?
Or they find Tom Holland on this school's roof. And the other two, they have a heart-to-heart up there. They're about to say, I know what you're going through. And he's like, do not say, you know what I'm going through. You do not. And then Tobey Maguire says, it was my Uncle Ben. Andrew Garfield said, it was my Uncle Ben. And then Tom says something along the lines of, this is the last thing that she told me, and they both said the exact same thing.
Mm-hmm.
But with great power comes great responsibility.
And that's when they decide to go down to the school's lab.
Mm-hmm.
And they are trying to formulate plans to...
how to save each villain.
And Andrew Garfield calls to Maguire, he says he has cool youth pastor vibes.
Or he's like, do you have your uniform, or are you just going to wear your cool youth pastor outfit?
Which, accurate.
Yes. But, so, Andrew goes, because he's already cured Dr. Connors before, the lizard, before. So he's going to recreate the cure. Toby has been trying to figure out a way to cure Goblin. He's been trying to figure out a way to cure him for years. Mm-hmm. But since he's dead, in Tom Holland, or in Tobey Maguire's universe, there's no way to know if it works or not. So they all try to fix a hero from their area. Ned asks Toby, did you have a best friend? And Toby said yes. And he said, what happened to him? He's like, he died in my arms. And he's like, how did he die? He's like, he tried to kill me. And then Ned tells Tom, I promise I will never try to kill you.
Yeah.
And he looks questionably, but funny thing is, in the comics, Ned is actually a villain in the comics, and he tries to kill Peter Parker a lot, which is kind of funny from that scene.
So yeah, they go to the Statue of Liberty.
Which is getting modified.
Which is a little odd.
I mean, Cap did save everyone's life.
I guess he in their world is the definition of liberty.
I mean, he did sacrifice his life twice to save the world.
Sure.
So, I mean...
I do think it leads to a really cool shot at the end, which I will talk about.
So
the villains arrive, and Ned is unable to close the portal.
Lizard runs through the portal, runs through the house, and goes back through, which is funny. So they all try to fight the villains.
This sequence is really cool.
But the conversation between the three is funny about the webs.
Oh, yeah.
So Tobey Maguire asks, "What are you guys doing?" And he's like, "We have to make our webs." And he just shoots the web out of his hand, out of his arm.
He's like, "You make that?
You make it inside you?" And it's like, "Yes." He's like, "How do you do it?" "I don't know. How do you breathe? You just do it." They go to Statue of Liberty, and they're all talking about different villains. And Tom asks, "What are the craziest villains you fought?" Toby says, "I fought a goo alien from space." He's like, "That's cool." And then Tom Holland says, "Yeah, I fought an alien from space. He was big and purple. In space and on Earth." He's like, "You've been to space?" "Yeah." And then Andrew Garfield, Spider-Man, says something like, "I'm lame. All I've fought, cool-wise, is a dude in a rhino outfit." "Did you call yourself lame?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "You're not lame. You're amazing," which is funny because his movies were called The Amazing Spider-Man.
Oh.
Andrew Garfield fixed Tobey Maguire's back, which is funny because in real life, while filming Spider-Man 3, during one of the end fight scenes, Tobey Maguire slipped and fell on some metal bars and jacked up his back.
As a person with chronic back pain, I get it.
And so they put that in the movie. They all try to fight different different villains at the same time. They realize it's not working. They're getting their butts beat left and right. So they get back together and they're like, "Okay, we need to make a team, or we need to work as a team." But Toby and Andrew have never been on a team before. It's always just been them. He's like, and then Tom says something along the lines of, "I've been on a team. I'm part of the Avengers." And then they're like, "Whoa, you're an Avenger?
What's an Avenger? Is
What's
that a
an
band?
Avenger? Is that a band?" He's like, "No, it's the world's mightiest heroes." Or whatever.
Because the Avengers don't exist in their world?
No. We don't see any other heroes in their worlds. At that time, superhero movies weren't very big. At the time, we had Blade, we had Fantastic Four. I mean, we had X-Men that were big, but not like it is today. It was, you were either a comic book fan or you weren't. Now today, a lot of people are now comic book fans, if that makes sense. Comic book movie fans. And so they start fighting together. They cure Sandman first.
Which I really like how he's made of sand, and then they give him the cure, and he basically is just a guy.
Yeah, he's just a guy. So in Spider-Man 3, he fell into a pit of sand that was being experimented on. I don't think it was gamma radiation. It was something along those lines, though. And so next they cure Lizard. Order that they cure people in is a little bit fuzzy for me.
Yeah.
And then Electro. But I like Electro's and Andrew's conversation. It feels sweet and because he wasn't a bad guy.
Genuine.
He was not a bad guy.
It's Jamie Foxx.
Yes. He just had something bad happen to him. He fell into a pit of electric eels that were being experimented on.
That would just kill you.
But it was being experimented on.
Sure.
A lot of Spider-Man's villains were freak accidents, which is sad to say. And Spider-Man was a part of some of them. Like Doc Ock, for example. Doc Ock comes and puts the electric removal thingy, I don't remember what it's called, to take out all the extra electricity out of Electro.
Yeah.
And Electro says, "I thought you were going to be black." And he's like, there's probably a black Spider-Man out there somewhere, which is Miles Morales. I think the only black Spider-Man. So Norman and Tom are fighting down. So during the fight, the scaffolding breaks around, and the Captain America shield on the Statue of Liberty falls.
Yeah, and MJ falls and Andrew saves her.
Yes, so last time Andrew jumped to save someone, it didn't end well. It ended with Gwen Stacy breaking her back. And so it reminded him of that. So he actually jumped to save her instead of just shooting away. But it also was in a clock tower. So it was similar where everything was falling around them when he webbed her. So that was some severe PTSD, let's just say. He quit being Spider-Man for like 6 or 7 months.
So we learn that the multiverse is opening.
Yes, because of the spell.
It's basically like there's like a rip in the sky.
And we get a lot of Easter eggs.
Like what Easter eggs?
Kraven the Hunter, Rhino, Miles Morales, and several others.
So there's this shot where Green Goblin and Tom Holland are fighting on the cap shield that like fell.
Yes, and we get a similar scene to what happened in first Spider-Man movie.
I just really love this scene because it's starting to be sunrise, and the inside of the shield is like almost a coppery color. Yeah. So it's like the way the lighting, the sun is hitting the shield and the sunset and sunrise light, and like it's just such a cool shot.
Yes.
And I love the lighting in it. It makes it look really cool.
It is really cool. Tom tries to kill Norman with his flying ship, which is a similar is a similar death to what happened to Norman at the end of the first Spider-Man movie.
Yep.
Toby stops him and he's like, "This is not what Aunt May would have wanted." Toby killed the guy who killed Uncle Ben. If you remember.
Yes, I know.
Toby gets stabbed by Green Goblin in the side, and then Tom Holland stabs Green Goblin with the serum. Spider-Man has a heartfelt moment with MJ saying like, "Hey, you're going to forget me, but I'm going to re-find you."
They cast a spell to make everyone forget Peter.
Peter Parker is Spider-Man. To make everyone forget who Peter Parker is.
Yeah.
And that's everyone.
So then we flash forward to Christmas.
Yes.
And there's snow on the ground, there's Christmas decorations.
And MJ and Ned got into MIT.
So basically Peter goes to this donut shop that MJ has been working at, and he can't bring himself to tell her.
No, because that's going to
mess with her reality. And he goes to visit May's grave, and he sees Happy, and Happy's like, "Who are you?"
Yep. So everyone forgot who Peter was. It was the only way to make everyone not be, or to make everyone feel safe.
And then we see Peter going in. He moves into an apartment. And he has a GED book because he can't finish high school.
No one's going to remember him. And so there's 11 more minutes, because at this point No Way Home got re-released with 11 more minutes, but it's all, from what I've read, it's all useless stuff.
Yeah, I saw that, and I just...
The only important thing, it was an end scene credit, was the important part. Betty was doing a recap, because they have to redo their senior year, because of the blip. She was doing a recap on Washington, D.C., and their holiday trip. Someone else was in Peter's place. So, like, even in those pictures, Peter is not even there.
There's a shot where he's flying around New York at Christmas time, and there's some like really cool shots, and like I used to live in New Jersey, so like I went to Manhattan a lot, especially around the holidays, and just the like I never went like ice skating or anything like that, but like just the Manhattan at Christmas time is like otherworldly. The end credit sequence is Venom in Mexico.
Here's the thing. Venom that knows who Spider-Man is,
Topher Grace,
was Venom in Spider-Man 3.
Mm-hmm.
He knows that who's Spider-Man, that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. But Tom Hardy, or whatever his name is now Venom. Which, now Venom is part of the MCU. So it's up to you if you want us to talk about Venom or not. Or if you guys want us to talk about Venom, we can do it in February as a bonus episode or whatever.
Yeah.
Because the Venoms don't really tie in because they are their own story, like Morbius.
We are not covering that dumpster fire.
I'm just using it as an example. It is its own story.
Unless you guys are hell-bent on us roasting the ever-living crap out of that movie.
Like, if you want us to do the more strange MCUs, like the Morbius, the Venom, or both Venoms, the Defender Saga, if you guys want us to do those, let us know. And we might it depends.
I don't think it would be, especially Morbius, I don't think it would be fun unless we are roasting it.
Yeah. I still want to see it, though.
Because I have heard nothing good whatsoever.
Same here. I do want to watch it, though, just because it is one of the only Marvel movies that I haven't seen.
He's just a vampire.
I know. But it does tie in with Spider-Man, and I do like Spider-Man.
Anyway, so that is a wrap on Spider-Man No Way Home. I enjoyed it a little more than I think I enjoyed Far From Home.
Okay.
If I lacked enthusiasm in this episode, it has nothing to do with the movie. It has everything to do with the fact that it is 11 p.m. and I am tired.
Yes.
So, the upcoming month, you guys have heard us talk about it a little bit.
A little bit.
We will be covering the TV shows. You'll be getting a full month of episodes. With WandaVision, you'll be getting an episode every single day, every single weekday. And with the other shows, you'll be getting it Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Yes.
And so next Monday,
we'll be starting
our WandaVision episodes. So Wanda Week.
And then Falcon Week. Loki
I
Week.
wish there was like a fun, because we got Wanda Week, you know? I wish there was like a fun little wings. Falcon has wings.
The Wing Week.
So yeah, next week we will be
covering WandaVision.
Monday through Friday we'll be covering WandaVision. So join us for that. You can binge it all in one sitting on, a Saturday. You can watch it. You can do it day by day. So yeah, that is a wrap on this episode. Join us next week for WandaVision for Wanda Week, and we'll see you then. Bye.
Bye.
If you would like to send us any feedback, you can follow us on Instagram at thefanclub_podcast or Twitter at fanclub_podcast. You can also discuss each episode with us on our subreddit, which is reddit.com/r/thefanclubpodcast. And make sure you tune in every Marvel Monday.